Mushe, please count me down.
Go. All right, we're good to go. We can start now.
All right. Good evening and welcome to UKZN's Convocation Unpacked. Tonight is quite an interesting night because we actually get to sit down and have an elaborate talk with none other than Msizi Khoza, who's a bio. I was reading his bio is quite a lengthy one, and indeed we're privileged to have him tonight as he unpacks convocation with us, where he tells us what exactly convocation is, what it entails, what its purpose is, and how then we as UKZN alumni can access convocation and actually be a part in the university's infrastructure through convocation. And my name is Timbale Tishange, and I'll be your host for tonight. Before we get straight into convocation, I'd like to just read the bio of our guest speaker tonight, Mr. Msizi Khoza. Just give me a second, and here we go. Msizi is currently a director at APSA's investment banking division, where he supports clients across the continent to tap into local and international capital markets in order to meet their financing needs. Previously, Msizi was chief of staff to the APSA Group CEO. He provided daily strategic support to the CEO, supporting her in driving strategy execution, managing group priorities, and deepening relations with key external stakeholders. Msizi also worked at Ethos Private Equity, where he supported portfolio company executives in developing and refining strategic objectives, as well as identifying operational, commercial, and financial levers to unlock growth. Prior to that, Khoza worked as a consultant for global management consultancy, A.T. Kearney, where he advised C-level executives of some of Africa's leading companies and governments. He was also seconded to the Secretariat of the National Planning Commission, where he drove the recommendations for South Africa's economic infrastructure as part of the NDP. Cece then began his career as a control engineer at Hatch & Associates, where he designed control and instrumentation software for clients in the mining and mineral processing sectors. Cece's M.Eng thesis, entitled Economic Modeling Using Computational and Intelligence Techniques, produced 3 peer-reviewed journal papers and was presented at international conferences of the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. Cece also holds an M.Eng in Electrical from the University of Johannesburg between 2011 and 2012, as well as a postgraduate diploma in leadership from the Thabo Mbeki Leadership Institute between 2011 and 2012. And he also has a BNc in engineering, specifically computer engineering, from the University of KwaZulu-Natal between 2007 and 2010. Msizi is also a World Economic Forum Global Shaper and featured on the 2012 edition of the Mail and Guardian Top 200 Young South Africans. Outside his work commitments, Msizi is married with 1 child. In his spare time, beyond connecting with his family and friends, Msizi is an avid reader and enjoys a good round of golf. What a mouthful. Definitely fitting for the person that we have today. Good evening, Mr. Khoza, and welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, good evening, Tams, and it's wonderful to be here, and looking forward as well to our conversation this evening.
Most definitely so am I. Again, good evening to everyone joining us on all our platforms, be it Zoom, be it YouTube, be it Facebook. Thank you so much for being a part of this really interesting conversation that we're going to have with Mr. Khoza. Do ensure that you send through your questions via our chat box on Zoom, as unfortunately we will not be allowing people to, physically express their questions via Zoom. However, do feel free to send your questions through via these platforms, as we will have a Q&A session towards the end of our session today. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. Mr. Khoza, what exactly is conversation? What are we talking about today?
So Tams, first of all, you can call me Msizi. There's no need, I think, for formalities here. So I think the conversation tonight is really a conversation that seeks to try and unpack, what we mean by this thing called a university convocation.
Yeah.
I often tell people that it's the word convocation in and of itself sometimes is intimidating to some people, and actually people don't know what it is. And actually what it is that it's just a body of opinion within the university that represents all of the alumnus, so all of the people in a university who are graduates, people who've been conferred degrees or who've been awarded diplomas, But I think also most importantly, it also includes, by the way, the current academics within the university.
Okay.
So those professors, lecturers, all of these people, they form part of this body which is called Convocation, which is really kind of just the alumni of any institution. And of course, all universities have them. So what we're going to try and do this evening is really to try and to unpack, right, what is this thing called Convocation? What are its roles? What are its responsibilities? And how and why, in fact, they were created in the first instance. And what we as former students of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, should be looking for in our convocation, and how most importantly we can and should participate.
Most definitely. Thank you so much. You mentioned something quite interesting. The word convocation is just bombastic. Convocation, what is that? Hardly ever heard of. So what then is the significance of it? You did mention that, we form part of the body that ultimately runs, is a part of governance rather of, the institution. So why is it important? Like, why should we then, sit down and vote and, have nominations? What is its significance? What does it do?
So I think it's very significant, and the reason why it is significant is because every person, every student at UKZN, every person or ex-student or graduate of the university, you obviously, your relationship with the university does not end on the day that you get that I don't know if they still have it nowadays. I mean, I graduated a long time ago, but back then we used to have sort of this there was something written in the academic transcript that said degree completed, right?
Yes.
And it was sort of always like this thing that once you've got this degree completed, that's it. It's a big achievement. It does not, your relationship with the university does not end on the day that you get that degree completed, or you attend the graduation ceremony, right? And you get conferred the degree, the vice chancellor or the dean or whomever kind of taps you on the head, right, and confers you the degree. The relationship does not end there, and the reason why all of us should be invested, even though we've technically speaking exited the doors of the university, is the weight of the qualification, whether or not you graduated last year, or you are still to graduate, or you graduated 10 years ago, or you graduated 20 years ago. The weight of your qualification is intricately linked to how people view the university. So if people don't view the university as an institution which, produces highly skilled, thinkers and doers,
can play out loud,
right?
and
Then people are actually, the fact that you have the program, you've got the piece of paper that's written your name that says you've got a degree in psychology, or you've got a degree in medicine, or you've got a degree in the arts, or you've got a degree in engineering, is worthless, because actually people don't attach much weight to it. So all of us are invested in convocation precisely because, as graduates, we derive the value of our degrees and our certificates, right, from how people perceive the university. So it's why we should actually still remain involved as much as we can, because if the university declines in terms of how people perceive it, etc., then it also doesn't bode well for me. It doesn't bode well for the people who are studying at the university today. It doesn't bode well for those who just recently graduated, and it doesn't bode well for those of us who graduated some time ago. So that's why, to go back to your question, that's why it is so important for us to be involved and to remain invested in the university. And the convocation is the primary channel through which we as graduates of the university kind of remain involved and shape the university's future, shape its present, but also its future.
Most definitely. You actually answered a question that I wanted to ask you, because we now know that UKZN is definitely a school of, the highest premiership in Africa. It's one of the, highest universities in the world, in fact, part of the top 400, and entities like Convocation actually, generate such influence and value of the institution. That's why, again, probably adding to your answer, it adds to the significance of why then people should take Convocation seriously and actually be a part of it. So definitely something to remember to those who are a bit skeptical about actually being an informed and involved part of Convocation. So another question, I keep seeing there's like some aspects of alumni network and then some aspects of Convocation. Is there a significant difference between these two? If so, what is it?
Yeah, so alumni networks, generally speaking, are a little bit more, I'm going to say informal, right? Informal under inverted commas, because a convocation, is a creature of statute. And what I mean by creature of statute is that every university, right, has something called a founding statute, almost like its constitution, if you kind of think about it, right? And so all of these universities, their statutes or their founding constitutions, their founding documents would stipulate that there has to be a convocation in this particular university, right? The University of KwaZulu-Natal. The convocation must be established. These are the people who, this is the eligibility of people who want to be, who are members of the convocation. And they call it kind of, the role of convocation, or the convocation role, right? It's almost like you have to be inscribed onto this role, but it's they try to make it sound also sexy, but so the convocation is kind of the formal kind of alumni body of the university. The alumni networks, are all kind of typically very informal, and they try to, in a sense, kind of amplify. In an ideal world, they should be amplifying the work that a convocation typically would do, right? So you'll typically find in some cases that there's an alumni network of the College of Business, for an example. There's an alumni network of the engineering faculty. There is, and so you find different guises, but kind of the body which is almost, if you think about it, almost like the mother body of all of these alumni networks is the convocation. And that's why, to answer your question about what is the difference, that's why the president of the alumni network of the College of Business does not sit on the council of the university. Okay. Right? The person who sits on the council of the university is the president of convocation, because that is the person that the university recognizes, and the body, the official body that the university recognizes as speaking for all of the convocants of the university, all of the graduates of the university, all of the academics, present and retired, by the way. All of the retired academics of the university. This is the person who almost speaks on their behalf, or this is the body that represents their interests. So that's kind of the key difference, I would say. So I think to maybe go back to the point you were asking me previously, that's why, at least I believe, it's not enough for us to just belong to an alumni network of whatever faculty that you belong to, or whatever faculty that you read in, or that you read under. Right? It's important for us to actually belong to the structure, which is the recognized kind of structure within the university construct.
Okay, thank you so much, because basically, just to summarize, for a layman, who doesn't know anything, you'd say that the alumni network is an important integral part, but rather more informal in terms of decision making and in terms of running, principally and being involved in the governance of the institution, whereas Convocation then forms part, of, actual implementation of, and is also a representative body of, the alumnus and the network that exists, post-graduation for every single person who's been a part of the institution. Okay, so thank you so much just for that clarity. Before I get to your next question, thank you so much yet once again to everyone who's joined us. Do send through your questions because we will have, a Q&A session later on from the audience. I really hope that you're learning a bit from Mr. Ukoza. Sorry, you said I must call you Msizi?
Msizi, yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. Hope you're learning a lot from Msizi because I surely am. And that leads me then to my next question. You spoke about a representative body, right? And in that representative body, there need to be representatives who then, are part of this body. So how do we go, because there's convocation and there's convicts. And also there's different layers to this. So what is convict? What's convict?
Yeah, so obviously, so convocation, as I've mentioned, right, is all of the people who are the graduates of the university. The vice chancellor is also a member of convocation by virtue of his position, the registrar, current academics, retired permanent academics, and the like. Now, all of these people, have to then elect an executive, a small committee, which is supposed to do a couple of things. One of them is obviously to be kind of the formal representatives of this body of people, right? Which could run easily into, the hundreds of thousands, because if you think about all of the graduates of, UKZN, a large institution, and all of its predecessor institutions, UDW, UNP, and the like, right? So all of these people then have to almost elect a small committee, an executive, which is what we call convex in the UKZN parlance, and so this convex is this executive committee, which is, as I mentioned earlier, it's supposed to do a couple of things. One of them is obviously to be the official face and the official representatives of convocation, but two, they're also then supposed to run a series of programs, right? Because you put your hand up and you say, I am Msizi Khoza, I'm eligible to be a member of, I am a member of the UKZN Convocation, and I want to be a member of the executive of Convocation. But there has to be a reason why you want to be a member of Convocation. You can't just say, I want to be a member of Convocation, just J, because I want to be a member. There has to be a reason why you want to be. Right. So now, once you've been elected, together with those other people that you've been elected with, and I think in the UKZN Constitution, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 6 people, 6 or 8 members of convex, and so, together with my 7 or 6 other 5 other colleagues, right, we've then got to design a series of programs, right? We've been elected onto this thing, onto convex for a period of 3. The term of office is, I think, 3 years, usually.
Yeah.
And so then now, you've got to then run a series of programs, right? Which is why you were elected. You can't just say, well, I was elected, but I'm not going to do anything about it. You have to be elected, and then you have to do then something, right? For the members of the convocation, and we can speak maybe a little bit more about that. So that's what convex is. It's like this executive committee, which is the official face of convocation, which are all the graduates of the university and all the other stakeholders, and they are the people who are supposed to then speak on these people's behalf. That's really what convex is in a short sentence. I maybe spoke 10 sentences, but it's
okay. I'll summarize for you. To summarize, just making sure that I've got the right idea. So basically, Convicts is the executive body of convocation, represented by a good let's say 8 people. I think it's 9 because there's 6 members that are elected. Then there's a 2. Then there's 1. But we'll get to that a bit later. I don't want to spill all the beans now.
Yeah, sure.
But so it's about 9-ish, 8-ish people that you can be working with. You mentioned a 3-year term and you mentioned programs. What are these programs? Like, what type of programs? Because I know that with Convocation and Convicts, it has to be on a voluntary basis. You're not getting paid for this. It's just to you out of the goodness of your heart saying, hey, I want to make a change. I want to add to this value of this prestige university. So what are these programs that then add, to that?
Yeah. So Thames, I think that's a great question, first of all. And there is no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
And it really is within the gift of those who are on convex, right? And I think, to go back to your earlier question where we started this conversation about, kind of why we should get involved. One of the points that I probably did not highlight, which I ought to have, is why it is important not just to get involved, but also to elect the right people.
Yeah.
To become members of Convocation, because as you said, this is a you do this out of the kindness of your heart. There's no rem that you're going to get out of this. So it's about you, lending your skills and your experience for the betterment of the university. Now, some of those programs can be internally focused. By that, I mean directed specifically to the Convocation, to members of the Convocation. And some of it could be externally focused, i.e., for the betterment of the university. So let me make a couple of examples. So, to bring this to light and to give kind of a better sense, of what we mean by this. So about 2 years ago now, a little over 2 years ago, I am obviously a graduate of the University of Johannesburg as well, and 2 years ago I was elected onto the Convocation or the Convocation Executive Committee, which is the same as Convex, of the University of Johannesburg. And there is, on that committee, there's 6 of us. No, there's 5 of us on that committee who are elected, and then the Vice Chancellor and the Registrar are ex-officio members. So there's 7 people in total. And one of the things that we looked at, and we said, look, when we think about what we want to achieve in the next 3 years, what are, the key big pillars that we need to organize ourselves around? One of those was around graduate unemployability, right? So what do we do with, to help graduates of the University of Johannesburg who are unemployed, right? Who are struggling to find work. So how, because those are members of Convocation. So how do we assist those kind of people, right? So what are some of the things that we can do in the short term, over the medium term, working with the university, right, to try and almost get these graduates into employment quicker, right? Sure. That's kind of one of the things we looked at. The other thing that we looked at was, all universities have alumni departments, right? I was speaking to Norma earlier on in the week, and she's from the UKZN alumni department, right? Yeah. So, and these are people who are formally employed by the university, right? And so we said, right, so there are resources here. So how do we within the university? Yeah. So how do we work more closely with these colleagues to see, what are the programs that they're doing at the moment? How can we as the executive or convex, shape these programs so that they become better? How can we leverage, the Convocation's membership and decision-making powers as part of council and as part of the finance committees, if they're saying, well, we've got these great programs, but we actually don't have the budget, right? So how can we now leverage our position in council and in other areas to basically redirect more resources, towards the alumni office so that we can actually sort of start to get more traction in terms of what the alumni are. So that's one of the other things we did. And we looked at, kind of alumni benefits. If you're a registered member of the alumni, what are the benefits that you can get from the university? And those things require resources.
Yeah.
Right. So we argued very strongly and very vociferously in council meetings, in council finance meetings for more resources, right, to be thrown the way, not thrown, but to be redirected the way of the alumni office, precisely so that we could employ more people, so that we could run more programs, more efficiently, we can target more alumnus, and all of those kind of things. So that's kind of one other program, for instance, that we're running. Another one is actually, one, it's taking a bit longer for us to gain more traction, but that's because the scale of the ambition is so much higher. Which is that we are in the process of raising funds as the Convocation to basically build a female-only first-year student residence in one of the campuses of the university. Right.
Okay.
So again, right, it's like, when we were doing this, it was the scourge on the pandemic of GBV. So you have all these female first year students in particular, who are at risk, right? So if the university says, well, I would love to build a new residence, but I just don't have the funds, we say, well, that's fine. We're going to put our shoulders to the wheel, and we are going to help you and the rest of the fundraising network within the university to raise funds so that we can build an on-campus residence for first-year students, right? And that's obviously fundraising is a long and ongoing process, but we're in the process of making some of those and getting those commitments in order to build that residence. So that's not something probably that's going to be achieved in our term of office, because we've only got 1 year left. But at least if it's going to cost the university 100 million, if we can get there and say we've raised 50 or 60 or 70 million, at least for the next people who come, the distance is a little bit shorter, right? So I'm trying to sort of give you, Thames, and some of the other viewers and folks who have joined us some more color as to kind of what are right some of these programs that Convex ought to be running, and of course I can only use my own experience to give insight, I guess, to what those may be.
Sure. Before I get into the next question, the initiative that you're running at UJ is absolutely amazing. I think it speaks to the members of Convicts and Convocation in general, just to be in touch with reality, being a part of the fabric of society and ensuring that through Convicts and Convocation, issues that arise within this institution, as well as society in general, are, somewhat combated and aided through, the mechanism of Convicts. So props to you guys for doing that, So speaking of which, you spoke in your first answer, when you're talking about the internal program that you're running within UJ. You speak of a very passionate person, someone who is passionate about just solving these issues within the institution. So it leads me then to think, what are the characteristics that you actually need in a person who wants to be elected as part of Convict? Because, hey, all's good and well, I want to be a leader and lead, because there's this very untrue statement going around that you have to have been an ex-SRC member, for example, to be a part of Convicts. Absolutely not true. We're debunking that right now, right here. Not true at all. So what is, besides passion and just being a leader, what are these characteristics that would actually make you, a member that actually adds value to Convicts and ultimately Convocation and ultimately the institution?
Yeah, so I look, I think that's a fantastic question, and you touch on a good point there, right? About this myth that Convex is kind of like this playground for ex SRC presidents and ex SRC leaders and the like, which is absolute BS, right? So to your first point, though, about what kind of qualities make for a good member of Convicts. And you've touched on some. Passion is one, and I think a big one obviously ought to be, stewardship, right?
Okay.
So this idea of wanting to leave something in a better state than what you had found it.
Okay.
Right. This whole notion of, you actually want to make progress for the better, so that when you hand over the baton and the next, convex leaders come after you, right? They find the institution in a much better space, right? So I think the this value, I think, of stewardship, I think is a very, very important one. And then I think the other point, which is not often made, is that you also need a diversity of skills and a diversity of viewpoints. It's perfectly fine to have ex-activists and ex-student leaders, in Convex. I mean, I'm not at all arguing that they should not be there. They've got every right to be there. But you need a diverse mix and set of skills. You need people who are, who've actually never been activists, all right? Who've actually never been in the university kind of campus leading strikes and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Who actually have never done those kind of things, but who have, been in the private sector for a very long time, right? You need people who are in Convex who've been in the NGOs, in the NGO sector. You need people on Convex who have worked in government, for an example.
Yeah.
Because when the Convex is attempting to design and to implement its programs, you need this diversity of skills in order, right, to push this thing forward, right, in order to implement your programs successfully. And you're not implementing programs for the sake of implementing programs. You're implementing programs, right, for your constituency, which is I say constituency, which is obviously the members of the convocation, but also the wider university environment as well, right? Because obviously, to go back to the example I was making earlier, if we build if we are successful at the University of Johannesburg in raising funds to build a student residence, at the end of the day, yes, it's the convocation that has done that, but it's the university, that has also benefited, right? And actually, it's multiple generations of female students, right, who get to now use these facilities, right? So so I would say it's obviously about passion, it's about integrity, and it's also about, as I've mentioned earlier, like this value of stewardship, as well as I think a diversity of different skill sets and different experiences that people can bring to the fore in Convex.
Okay. No, thank you so much for that. So I just want us to get straight into like the technical stuff now. Who are the members now of Convicts? Because now we're having nominations on the 5th of November, right? Do not forget, UKZN Alumni, that the nominations close at no later than 4:30 on the 5th of November. So please send through those nominations. You don't want to be left behind. So now let's get straight into who are we nominating? Why are we nominating them? What are the positions that need to be filled? So there's three from what I know. There's the president, and then there's the electoral convocation members there are two members who are part of that. And then they're just Convicts members as well. And that's 6 people. So the president, who's also the chairperson of Convocation, what is his role? Because president is a very general term. What does that person have to do? What does he look like? What does he or she rather look like?
Yeah, so a great question. So the president of Convex obviously chairs Convex. So works together with the registrar of the university, because the registrar of the university is the secretary, if you will, of convex, of this committee of 9. This committee of 9, kind of the 9 elected people. And he also, as I understand it, in the UKZN context, also serves on council.
Okay.
So what we want here, we need somebody who kind of embodies the best of ourselves, right, as Convocation, right?
Okay.
We want somebody that we can relate to. We want somebody who, as I say, is the best version of ourselves, because we also want somebody that we can look up to. And we want somebody who, you know, in the UKZN context, who is going to, and I mean, I'm singling out UKZN here, but actually it's in the wider context, because, you know, UKZN is in exactly the same boat as UJ, exactly the same boat as predominantly all of the Black universities, the formerly Black universities, right, in South Africa, in that they need to take Convocation to the next level. What we mean by that is, what I mean by that is, we want a he or a she who is going to, you know, take Convocation and really make it a force for good in the university. When we began this conversation, you talked about UKZN and its ambition of being the premier institution of African scholarship, right? That's not going to happen with a Convocation that is lackluster. That's not going to happen with a Convocation that is not active in the affairs of the university. That's not going to happen in a Convocation that is, you know, not supporting the university to raise funds, for an example, right? Because universities, you know, we can you know, talk a lot about what universities are and what they are not, but at the end of the day, you know, without resources, the university can't function. The university can't accept students. The university can't teach because it can't hire lecturers. The university is not going to produce research papers, right, and better society by creating research, right, if it cannot hire researchers. So without all these things, a university can't give scholarships if it does not have the resources to do so. So you need a Convocation which is also going to, you know, be an engine in the fundraising efforts of the university, right? I mean, if you think about, you know, and I'm probably kind of going on too much on this point, but if you think about, you know, the very large international famous universities, the Harvards, you know, all the Ivy Leagues, the Harvards, the Stanfords, all these kind of institutions, right? Part of the thing that actually sets them apart is that their alumni are very active in the university, and the alumni give back, and the alumni donate, and the alumni go out and they say, I'm Msizi, I've donated, you know, 1,000 Rand. I'm going to go to my friend and I'm going to ask him to also donate 1,000 Rand. You know, that's part of why they're so successful, because then they're able to build these endowments, build these huge pools of money, essentially, that then allow them, you know, to hire the best of the best of the best of the best of the best, you know, and build the best laboratory and all this other great stuff. And then it all of a sudden seems like there's something special about them. There's nothing special about them. It's just that they, you kind of started the game a little bit early, right? So in somebody, so to go back to where I started, we need a president of Convocation who embodies the best of our aspirations and who embodies the aspirations of the university, and somebody who's ethical, somebody who's got integrity, and somebody who can take the Convocation of the university to the next level. That's who I would vote for.
That's definitely, it sounds like an easy task, but actually not. Hey, you need to be someone who's grounded as well, who's very much on the ground and very much in tune with, the needs of society through the institution that you'll be representing. Definitely. Thank you so much for that answer. I hope the nominees who want to be nominated are hearing this and are taking notes.
The bar is
So,
very high. The bar is very high.
very, hey, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So,
The bar is very high.
very briefly, what are the other parts of convicts? So what do they do? What does the electoral convocation member do? And what are the convicts members in general? What do they do very briefly before we get into the viewers Q&A?
Yeah, so in terms of, as I've mentioned, so in terms of the other members of Convex, right? So you've got the three members of Convex, so the president and the two other elected members who serve on council. And I'll get to that point just now. And then you have kind of the other members of Convex, who the other six then who are elected, obviously, and they, ought to be people who, in terms of kind of what they ought to be doing, right? So earlier on, I spoke about the programs that a convocation is supposed to do, right? Because you can't just be elected and then, you come to a meeting of Convex every 3 months, you go to a nice boardroom somewhere in Westville, you have some tea and some biscuits and some coffee and a nice lunch, and then you walk away, right? That's not the job, right? Sure. The job is actually to apply yourself, you apply your energies towards the achievement of the objectives that you've set, i.e. these programs that you guys are running, right? So that's really kind of what these other, the three plus the six are together supposed to do, right? As I've mentioned, it's not just about attending meetings. So that's kind of what they're really supposed to, and what they should be measured on, frankly. Yeah. That's actually what they should be measured on, right? And then in terms of the guys, the three members of Convex who are on the council, though they typically sit on obviously the full council, and then a council generally, I'm not exactly 100% sure how it is at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, but generally a council is made up of different subcommittees. So there'll be a subcommittee on finance and investments, there'll be a subcommittee on projects and infrastructure, there'll be a subcommittee on HR and social and ethics, there'll be a subcommittee on audit and compliance, there'll be a subcommittee on I'm trying to think of the others at the top of my head, and there's normally a subcommittee, normally it's called nominations or directors affairs or something like that. It differs. And so then these three members of Convex who sit on council will obviously sit on the council, but also then kind of on the various kind of subcommittees. But that's something generally that is handled by the registrar, who will know, which committees are lacking what skills, etc., etc., etc. So that's in a nutshell kind of what they're supposed to do.
Okay. Thank you so much. Very informative. I personally have learned a lot. And I think what we can deduce from all of this is that it needs to be people who want, to be a part of the fabric of the university and for the betterment of the institution, really. Because if we do intend of being the premier institution of African scholarship, we need to have a top tier convex that will, take us to that level and keep us there, So once again, thank you to everyone who's tuning in. Thank you for your engagement. I will get straight into Q&A, right? So before I get into it, Nsisi, how would you like me to do it? Would you like me to ask all the questions and then you answer them one by one, or just one question, answer?
Well, whichever works, really. I don't mind.
Okay, cool. Let's start with the first question. Let's get straight into it. So Nomtareko Mhlongo asks, thank you for engaging, by the way, Ms. Mhlongo. She asks, how does one find people to nominate for Convocation?
So how does one find people to nominate? I actually think this is a question better placed to Norma and the alumni team, actually, because as I understand, because they're probably better placed to answer it from a process perspective, Nondobela. At the moment, we are in a process of nominating members. Presumably, once those nominations have come in and they're closed, presumably the university and the alumni office will then, publish a list of all of the nominated people, and then from then on we're invited to vote. But I stand to be corrected. Probably somebody from the alumni office is better placed to answer that specific question, because it's kind of a very process-driven one.
Sure. Thank you so much. We'll be on the lookout for that answer. Thank you for that answer, Sizi. Let's get into the next question. So I think it's a follow-up rather on this. It says, do all alumni vote, or is it only the outgoing convocation that votes?
All alumni vote. So if you are a graduate of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, you are an alumni of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, you are a member of its convocation, and therefore you have an eligibility to vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think normally.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
No. Just
no.
Clear,
so I was going to say.
Everyone.
Yeah. Everyone. I was going to say that normally there is a restriction which is placed, and again, it differs kind of from university to university, because all these universities have their own the convocation has its own constitution, right? So as I mentioned earlier, it's established in the statute or the constitution of the UKZN, but it's going to have its own constitution. The convocation, that is, has its own constitution, and normally there's kind of a restriction that's placed if you want to become a member of Convicts, that you have to have been a graduate for at least 5 years or something like that. Normally there's something like that. I know at UJ that's the case, that you can't be elected onto Convicts if you graduated yesterday. It's not allowed. But if you graduated yesterday, you can still vote for somebody else. To answer your question, Tobago, if you're an alumni and you graduated, you absolutely must vote. You're eligible to vote and you must vote. And I would strongly encourage you to go out to be on the lookout for these emails when they come out, and to cast your ballot, because it is critical for us to all be involved in the convocation of UKZN.
Most definitely, like you said earlier, it's important for us to be involved as we, preserve the stature of our institution. So again, please vote. Because if you are eligible, if you are an alumni, please ensure that you vote. So I think this question has been covered. It says, how does an alumni become a member of Convocation? Is it by default? I think you've covered this already.
It's by default.
By default. Let's move on to the next question.
Yeah, we work too hard to earn the degree. Once we've earned the degree, already we are in.
We deserve.
Exactly.
So the next question says, if a Convicts member happens to find employment outside of KZN during the 4-year term, must they vacate the position as eligibility is limited, rather, to individuals that are ordinarily residents of the province of KZN? I'm not sure. I think this question has to do with like physical voting, but now that we're online, I'm not sure whether that would still be a hindrance.
So what it says is, I know at UKZN, for an example, to be a member of Convicts, you have to be primarily residing within KZN. So I think that's where the question that's for Convicts though, right? But of course, I'm sitting here in Johannesburg. And I'm a member of I'm a member of the the UKZN convocation, and there's nothing that precludes me from being active in the convocation activities and being an active member of convocation. But because I'm primarily a resident here in Gauteng, I can't then be a member of Convicts at UKZN, because UKZN just believes that its Convicts members ought to be within the province, right? Because that's where the university is, and it makes complete sense as well, because you want your convex members to be involved in the university, and you don't want them to do that, you know, kind of from afar, so to speak. So I think that's where the conversation, the question kind of alludes to. So I think if you're not primarily a resident in KwaZulu-Natal, unfortunately, you can't be a member of Convex. So.
Yeah, definitely. You need to be close to home to lead the family. You know, you have to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You know, it makes sense that
Tams.
way.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So it says, again, Muslim Shongo is out here today. She asks, if one person is not a Convicts member, how does one contribute or support initiatives such as the ones Mtiti spoke of at UJ as an example, that the UKZN Convicts champions during their term rather?
Yeah. A fantastic question. Absolutely fantastic, Nondowero. I think, you know, the answer to the question goes back to the quality of the people that we must elect.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's easy for convex to be the secluded clique of 9 people, right? Who basically hoard all the information. They are the ones who are running all the programs. They are the ones who are, you know, influencing decisions on council, etc., 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 etc. And basically, you know, it's like a black box, right? Nobody knows what's, you know, people go in and then you only see them when they come out, right? So it speaks to, I think, to the quality of the people that we must elect, because it is in this convex that these people must almost invite members of Convocation to participate and encourage and find ways for individual members of Convocation to kind of to participate, right? And that's why it is so critical for us to elect the right kind of people.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that answer. Just a comment here from Nombubulelo Makobo, who says, well done on all the work you guys are doing at UJ. Again, props to you for that, Msizi. And then, so there's another question about when candidates start campaigning. However, I do think that at any time, really, because the votes are submitted tomorrow. You know, it's tomorrow, so I'd assume it'd be that. Just move on to the next question. Firstly, this is from Londiwe Amanda Mthembu. Thank you so much for joining us and engaging, Ms. Mthembu. It says, firstly, I just want to commend you, Msizi, for leading Convocation and giving your time for the betterment of the institution. Here. I just want to ask, since the Convocation represents the UKZN alumni, how do they sort of report back to alumni about things that they're doing and the programs where they need our support as alumni? A lovely question.
Yeah, Londiwe, I think a fabulous and a fantastic question. You know, the report back is done statutorily, or, you know, yeah, I'll say statutorily, but basically what I mean by that is kind of the convex is supposed to have at least one formal feedback session to Convocation during its annual AGM. Okay. So once a year, the convex is supposed to report back to Convocation to say, this is our body of work in the last year. This is what we wanted to achieve. This is where we are. This is what we've, you know, these are the targets that we've missed. These are the targets that we've hit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But of course, the convex can have more than one feedback session. There's nothing that says they can't have 4, right? So they can have different kinds of engagements with the Convocation. So again, let me make an example. So at the University of Johannesburg, one of the things that we've done is to launch what we call chapters, right? So We've got a Gauteng chapter that we launched not too long ago, about last month or so. We've got an international chapter that we launched basically in New York pre-COVID, when we could still travel, because what we actually found was that there was quite a few members, alumni that are actually South Africans who are based in New York. So we launched actually a chapter there, and where we basically are able to have these programs and have these feedback sessions where we say, hey, this is what we set out to achieve. This is where we are. These are all the issues that we're coming across. If you have any ideas, if you have any resources to share with us, we invite you to come on board. We invite you to come and help us in doing 1, 2, and 3. And that does not always have to be financial resources. It could be somebody making an introduction. I'm saying, I want to go and raise money at the IDC, and somebody at the IDC, and you say, I'm going to introduce you to someone. So the help doesn't always have to come in the form of a financial resource. Sometimes the help just needs to come in the form of networks. Sometimes it just needs to come in the form of giving opportunities. I say, I've got ex-graduates who've just recently come to me. I've got 5 graduates who've recently come to me, and they're all fantastic people, and they're in desperate need of internships. Do you know anybody who can absorb these guys on a 12-month basis? So sometimes it does not always have to be financial. It could be in-kind contributions. So Lundi, to your point, there's a one formal feedback in the form of an AGM, but the convex can have multiple engagements and multiple feedback sessions as they see fit with members of Convocation, and it could be, and they could use different segmentations. They could say, let's speak specifically to members of Convex who are alumni from the College of Business, who have done BCom accounting, for an example. Let's speak to members of Convex who are from the humanities, for an example. Let's speak to members of Convex who are from engineering, for an example. So it's within their gift, but I think it goes back to that point, and it feels like I'm a broken record now, but it goes back to that point about the quality of the people that we ought to elect, because you will have probably seen from most of my answers that the convex has actually got quite a sweep of powers. They can either be a black box and not be accountable to anyone for anything, or if they're ethical and they are driven by stewardship, and to your point, Thames, about them being a leader who's passionate and wanting to take the university forward and to give something of yourself to the for the betterment of the university, where there is no direct immediate benefit to you, right? If we elect those kinds of people, then Londiwe, to your point, then there's going to be much more communication. Convocation is going to be much more active. Convocation is going to invite people to participate. To Ms. Mhlongo's question earlier, is going to invite more and more people to come on board and to participate. But we ourselves first need to vote, need to participate, and we need to apply our minds on who we are electing. I think that's also the other important point.
Definitely, because I think when just speaking to your answer about having multiple feedback sessions, I think one feedback session can actually, feed into something else, feed into another program, into another project, into the betterment of another group of alumni. So I think definitely the method of multiple feedbacks will definitely holistically help, the aim of Convicts being for the betterment of the institution. So thank you once again, Ms. Mhlongo, for that question and for your answer, Msizi. Very elaborate, very, very rounded. We have a very good idea of what that entails. So Charles Kuzwayo, thank you again for engaging. Says, well presented, Koza. How much influence does the convicts have on higher decision-making bodies of the institution?
Yeah, so I think yeah, Charles, a fantastic question again. So Convocation has got an enormous amount of influence.
Mm.
It is a highly contested body of opinion within the university. And by the way, this is the reason why in not just at UKZN, but also at UJ as well. Before we were elected 2 years ago, the previous Convocation executive got into all kinds of issues, financial impropriety, mainly, because it has got an enormous amount of say in the affairs of the university, and where that power is exercised, or the levers in which that power is exercised, is the most obviously is on the council of the university. The second is obviously in the affairs of the university, because if you're a member of Convex, you have the vice chancellor on your speed dial, and when you call him or her, he's going to answer the phone.
Yeah.
So there is an enormous amount of influence that they have, because as I mentioned earlier, Convocation speaks for all of the alumni of the university. So if the alumni of the university are upset about something or someone, right, it obviously, somebody needs to, the senior head honchos at the university have to pay attention. Right?
Yeah.
Because an important body of opinion, is expressing itself through you. So it's got an enormous amount of power. So the first obviously is formal, which I've said is council, and then the second is informal, all right, through interactions, because if you're in Convex, you interact quite regularly with senior members of the university, the executive members of the university, the vice chancellor, and the people who report into him or her, right? You interact with them on a very frequent basis. The formal aspect, as I've mentioned, is obviously on council, where the three members of Convex sit on council, and they sit on the various committees, and they don't have to sit on one; they can sit on two or three. So between the three of them, they can cover all of the subcommittees of council. So if I'm sitting on two, and you, Thames, are sitting on three, and somebody else is sitting on three, before you know it, we've covered all of the subcommittees, and that's where all the big decisions are taken, right? So that's where the annual budgets of the university are set. That's where all the big hiring decisions of the university are made. At the level of, I think, I'm not sure at UKZN, but certainly at UJ, I think, if I'm not mistaken, every position from dean upwards needs to, deputy dean upwards, needs to be signed off at council. So if you think about it, that's a very wide spectrum.
Definitely.
Of both academic and non-academic positions as well within the university. So to answer your question, Charles, that's where the Convocation is an important body of opinion, and actually it's got a big say in the decision-making process within the university.
Thank you so much for that question, Charles. Definitely, Convocation and Convicts are a very, very integral part of governance in university. Thank you so much. So another question is, what is the time commitment required for being a Convicts member? Some have been hesitant to accept nomination out of fear that it'll be time consuming. So what are, the time consuming measures for someone who wants to be a part of Convicts? Is it a lot? Is it little? How much do you meet? How often do you meet rather?
Yeah. No, so ordinarily you meet about, I want to hazard and say 5 times a year, 5 to 6 times a year. I think we and again, I'm just going to speak to my own experience so that it's a little bit more practical for people. So we meet 6 times a year. So once as kind of an annual strategy session to kind of just to take a step back and take stock of where we are. And then kind of 5 normal executive meetings that then take place. So that's and normally these meetings typically run, I mean, it's in the gift of convex, so they must decide for themselves what they want to do. So if they want their meetings to be 4 hours, it can be. If they want their meetings to be 2 hours, it can be. It's really up to them. But hours normally range sort of in the 3 to 4 hour range.
Cool.
And there normally what typically happens is that we get a report from the vice chancellor. So the vice chancellor comes to account to us as the members of Convocation to understand what's happening in the university, and we would probe him and ask him questions, obviously, and he would take some of that feedback with him. We would raise any issues that we have. And then kind of the balance of the meeting is typically, a session that we ask ourselves, where are we on the various programs that we're running, together with members of the alumni office, because those are the people who we leverage. Those are the people, as I mentioned earlier, who are employed full time in the university to run the affairs of the alumni. And we use them as a amplifier in what we're trying to do. So we work with them quite closely, and if it's a fundraising issue which is top of mind, we'll normally have somebody from finance. Maybe it's the CFO. So it really kind of depends. And then between those meetings, it's really just about it's about you giving yourself. It's participating as much as you can, as much as you want. And if you're on council, then obviously you have council meetings, you have the subcommittees as well. But it's also how much you give of yourself to the Convocation convex programs. So difficult to say, but there's kind of some time that you must give, and I hope it gives people some color as to the time commitments.
Yeah, I think the most of the time would probably come from your personal time in when like you're working on the projects and working on the portfolio. So I think just like a structured time, definitely be probably a few meetings in a year, but most of your time would definitely come from you as a person, structuring your time as to how you can contribute to Convicts and ultimately the aims of Convocation. So an anonymous attendee says, thank you, Msizi. The programs that you mentioned, can these be improving the modules within the departments? Because there seems to be a gap in some science modules when you arrive at the workplace. It takes time for graduates from UKZN. And I think just to wrap it up, basically he's asking, do you have like influence in terms of improving courses and programs and actual qualifications within the university to help students to be more employable? You spoke about employability earlier on. So do you have like that kind of influence as well?
Yeah, you do. So a short answer, anonymous, is you do, but influence needs to be calibrated, right? And by what I mean by that is, as a member of Convex, even as president of the Convocation, you're not going to write an edict, you're not going to write an instruction to the DVC of teaching and learning and say, thou shall, create a program that's going to do X and Y and Z. You can't do that. It's not possible. What you can do is that you can leverage your influence, right, to at a slightly higher level, right, to influence and to shape the overall picture of where, you know, from a content or program perspective, the university is, right? So for an example, to make it very practical, for an example, at the University of Johannesburg, the vice chancellor's vision for the university is to, you know, make UJ kind of the preeminent institution for research, specifically as it relates to the fourth industrial revolution, right? As it relates to AI and artificial intelligence, right? So 2 years ago, one of the things that we pushed for quite hard was, well, you know, if indeed that's true, then perhaps we actually need to make it a mandatory module for all first-year students. And even a refresher course at the end of the third year or the end of the fourth year, depending on your degree program, right? On the basics of artificial intelligence and the basics of just learning how to code, right? You know, and thinking in a systematic way, right? Because if you're saying, well, we're sure we want to be this 4IR thing, right? And all these students graduates are going into a world of work which is digitized, and employers expect, you know, somebody, even if you've done a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Arts in English, they expect you not only to be proficient in Microsoft Word, but to also know what we're talking about when we talk about, you know, C+ or C++, which is a programming language, right? So, you know, not for you to be a coder necessarily, but for you to at least have an idea of what that is, right? Exactly. Sure. So, to answer your question, you do, but we've got to calibrate what we mean by influence.
Okay, I think, definitely to answer the question, yes, you definitely seem to have, you know, that kind of influence as a member of Convicts. So thank you so much, Mtizi, for explaining that to us. So Nontokozo Cele, thank you for joining and for engaging with us, Ms. Cele. She says, it just moved up. There we go. Thank you so much for such an insightful information session, regarding the convocation. I have learned a lot and will be better equipped when I vote on the 19th of November. Thank you, Ms. Cele. Our work here seems to be done, Msizi. And I have a question. And I have a question by Nkosenhle Hlophe. Thank you for joining. Says, how is the performance or effectiveness of the convicts measured? Is there like type of KPIs that they need to meet? I understand that they set up programs at the beginning of their term. Are there measures then in place to ensure that they at least deliver some of these? Beautiful question. Are there KPIs
I think I think you've hit the nail on there. That is a fantastic question. And I look, you know, I don't know, Gosendla, how much you heard of the beginning of this conversation with Thames, but one of the things that I said is that, you know, we as members of Convex need to be more active within the university, and it is for us to decide what those KPIs are as convocation, that is, right? Because remember, you elect somebody to represent you. They then say, okay, I'm going to do 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 different things, and these are the reasons why you guys must elect me, right? They basically almost have like a manifesto of sorts, right? Say, these are the reasons why you guys must elect me, right? This is the platform on which I'm running, right? So convocation members, us, having then elected you, you know, if I elect somebody on the 19th, you can bet your bottom rand or your bottom dollar that once I've elected, if you're running, once I've elected you, when the time comes in the next AGM, I will be the one firing questions at, well, you've had 1 year, you know, what have you done? This is my scorecard. You said to me in 2009, in 2021, that you will do 1, 2, and 3. I want to know what you've done. And you can't say, I didn't have help, because I'll say, yeah, but you had 365 days. You never once picked up the phone to say, Msizi, can you help me? You know,
right? Like, I'm just thinking over your answer. Like, is there accountability measures put in place for that? Let's say after 1 year, get there, like this manifesto is there in my hand, there's nothing that's been done. What happens? Do we keep the same people? What happens? What like accountability is put to ensure that these KPIs are actually met?
Yeah, look, I'm not, I don't know, Thames, I actually don't know, right? Because the Constitution of Convocation normally has like, mechanisms that you can use, right? To say, well, okay, Thames or Msizi has been completely disappointing, ergo we're gonna fire him. Please don't come back. You were basically talking nonsense 1 year ago, right? Normally those kind of mechanisms are there, but I'm not sure actually in the UKZN constitution. I think it's a great question. I think
that is so interesting.
Norms and your team there, you need to take note of this one. I think because we don't want people who are black boxes here. We don't want to elect people for 3 years and then they say they're acting on our behalf, but we never hear from them. And then 3 years later, they're out and they've never really done anything for us.
Yeah, definitely. Because 3 years is a very long time, and there's an aim for convicts. So all the aims and the objectives needs to be achieved. So hopefully there is some sort of accountability system in place, but we're not going to get into that. Last and final question, right? It says those who have been excluded or dropped out from university, are they allowed to vote, or is this particularly or mainly for graduates?
Yeah, so they are it's only for graduates. Okay. So where we started was, the when I was preparing for this session this afternoon or this evening, I looked at the statutes of UKZN, and it specifically says that if those students who've been awarded conferred degrees, awarded diplomas, you are, that is basically, you've been inscribed onto the convocation roll. You are then a member of the convocation of the university. So if you previously excluded or you dropped out, then unfortunately, you haven't graduated, which obviously means that you're not a member of convocation. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Anonymous, thank you for asking that question. You have to have graduated as in order to be a part of the university. Someone mentioned in a comment that, this kind of education and awareness needs to be given from your final year about convocation, so that people actually know what it's all about. So that's something that's very interesting. And I'm sure the university will take that up to ensure that people are actually, aware about this big word, this bombastic of convocation is all about. Yeah. Msizi, man, what an informative session. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am sure everyone has learned a lot. I certainly have. I certainly know a lot more than what I did coming into the session. Thank you so much for, taking your time to be here with us tonight and just informing us and giving us your very, monumental insights about, convocation and just your life experience as well, adding to the answers that you gave today. We really appreciate your presence today. A big thank you to UKZN for actually enabling us to be on this platform, to have this conversation, to have this session. And I call upon every single person watching this, tell your friends as well, if you know that they're eligible to vote, please ask them to, submit their nominations by tomorrow, the 5th of November, by 4:30, no later than 4:30, anything even a second later, unfortunately, your nomination will not count. Also, the AGM is scheduled for the 19th of November. Be, willing to be a part of that, because you do, enable the framework of the university to get better by being involved and being a part of convocations as members of the university. Because even though we've graduated, we will always and forever be part of the institution of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And since we aim, to be the African institution of African scholarship, we need to ensure that we are a part of this university and we add value to it as members of convocation and ultimately convicts. Thank you so much, Msizi. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Thames.
Thank you so much. To everyone who's watching, good night and God bless. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Cheers.
Bye. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you, guys. You were brilliant. Thank